Alright, what's up guys, BGVoro here. So today I'm going to be making a debunk video on in my opinion, my most aging video on my channel. I don't think this is necessarily my worst video, however, me back then from me now is just a totally complete different person in terms of my argumentative abilities, my scaling abilities, and even as a YouTuber, you'll hear a lot in this video just flat out bad arguments and bad scaling, and you'll hear me like stutter and stuff. And that's just more so like, again, I've grown as a YouTuber and as like a scaling and debater, so you'll hear a lot difference. And I kind of just want to go over some things I say on this video specifically, just because it is really like, I don't know, just really bad in my opinion. I saw this like a week ago and I'm just like, you know, I need to kind of like respond to this because this video does not reflect my current opinion at all. And I also think just some of the people on this channel, or not on this channel, sorry, some of these people on this video that I'm responding to, I do think have some pretty bad arguments that I did not lay my foot down on in this video exactly. And so yeah, let's get started. Hopefully I can add some context and some new arguments, so yeah.
So he's got Rai versus Sachi, Shin versus Sachi, Juza versus Ain, Jagi versus Chako, Toki versus Hyo, Rao versus KO, Rao versus Falco, Salda versus Falco, Shern versus Akatsuchi, Ryaku Anime versus Akatsuchi, and then he also wanted to do also the Chariot Stars minus the Ryaku and To versus 4 light generals in anime. I think there's actually technically 5, but I think he's referring to.
I remember when I was recording this video, I was struggling trying to say Solia as one of the generals, because you have in the manga Shino, Jask, Shoki, Falco, and Solia, and for some reason I was struggling to remember all those names. I just remembered Falco, which I mean kind of makes sense because he's the only one you should remember out of all of them. But you know, right, if you're just like, wait, what is he trying to say here by that dark general? That I was trying to say was Solia, but I just could not get out the word and I just forgot what the names are, so yeah.
The 4 Keller generals, and he's not included the dark one. That's fine with me. Okay, so then you get to the comments, and this was pretty funny for me. Rai versus Shin versus Sachi. About even. Could go either way depending on the narrative. Okay, so this first statement kind of says a lot, honestly, depending on the narrative. So the thing is, we're not... Okay, so the problem with this is, you're saying, depending on the narrative, someone's gonna win. But the thing is, there is no narrative in a death battle, or in a fight in general. When you have 2 characters that you're answering the hypothetical question of, okay, who's gonna win? There's no, oh, here's the narrative, so the character wins. That's not how it works. It's different if you're asking the author, say, hey, who wins between these 2 characters? Then it would be like, okay, well, the author.
So I don't really get my argument here. I think this was honestly a really poor argument, as a matter of fact. Like, yeah, narratives don't really go into this at all, just because you would kind of make a narrative for almost any character. If you watch my video that I recently released on the citation video with TG, you'll see like my opinion on narratives and why narratives can be a little misleading when it comes to using it in terms of power scaling. And so here I'm just kind of just saying like whatever, like this argument is complete fluff and I don't absolutely agree with it, right? Like, yes, you are not asking the author, but even if you are asking the author in this instance, like what does that really mean? You know, is the author true in this? You know, if the author says, you know, Shin does beat Sachi, is he correct? It's like, you know, probably not, just due to Sachi scaling, as well as like narrative cannot be solely used as a way to say X character is above Y character. I'll say that. Like, if it is a character that has infinitely better feats than another character, a narrative is just invalid at that point, because you can make any narrative and spin it anyway. So that's really just like a weird argument I'm trying to use to debunk it. I think the dude's using the narrative as his argument it's really stupid, right? Narratives should not be used in this way. But, you know, let's continue on with the video.
Author's narrative, like, kind of impacts in that question, but we're not asking the author, we're asking random people on Reddit. So, don't know why that's a point. Rye or Shin versus Sachi though. Also, like, I love how this guy he doesn't even answer the question.
I'll say this, to answer this though, Rye Shin versus Sachi. So, if you see my top 10 video, you know my opinion of Sachi is definitely higher than most people. Sachi absolutely just has some fantastic scaling when it comes to the ending arcs. So, Sachi kind of just scales above some like high level Asuras and even scales above Han in my video where I put him. You then have Shin, who is losing to a really early series, pretty much start of series, Kenshiro, and then Shin, loses against that Kenshiro. Kenshiro gets infinitely stronger, Muso Tensei, tons of training, and he goes on to beat Han. So, right, definitely huge difference between that Kenshiro when he faces Shin and that Kenshiro when he faces Han. And then Rai can beat Yuta, and is also stated to be equal to Kenshiro at certain points around this time. Like around the Jogi arc, Rai and Kenshiro are implied to be around equals relative. That Kenshiro just came off of beating Shin, so you can use that. You can also use Yuta, because in I believe the characterization guides, it says that Yuta is stronger than Shin. But yeah, so to answer that, that's what I would say. But let's see what my response here is.
Yours is about even, and that's it. Shin loses. Rai or Sachi doesn't have any feats really. I guess you could just say a demon could be more powerful than Rai, because you could say the typical demon is maybe comparable to a South Star. It depends. Sachi doesn't have.
So I don't really get this point. Sachi definitely has feats. I don't know why I say this. As well as a demon would absolutely slap any Nanto user. I'd say that pretty concrete. So the basis of this is we can scale even the low class demons, the one that faces Falco. That one's able to push Falco into Sakatsu points. That's pretty much like a prime peak, or not a prime peak, but it like pushes you to your limits when you hit a Sakatsu points. So when Falco hits the Sakatsu points, he can then beat the no-name demon. So that is saying something that pushes Falco to that point. And so we then can scale off of Falco. Well, Falco scales to this Kenshiro. This Kenshiro just got off of beating Rao. Rao absolutely destroyed every South Star member besides Souther. Souther, who's kind of implied to be like relative to a base Rao, but that's not including Muso Tensei, so Muso Tensei Rao would slap then. And then same thing with Fudo. Fudo, I think, has the best argument as a Chariot Star member, as he made he made Rao actually scared and terrified, but he still loses, of course, and then, put Muso Tensei on top of that, and, blah, blah, blah. So you have that Kenshiro scaling to that. So it's just, I don't really see how a Nanto user can fight a demon, but that's just me.
Have very many feats, so I wouldn't say it could. That I will kind of concede on. It could go either way, but Shin gets kind of clapped because Rai is definitely, I'd say, probably the third strongest. He's kind of like the middleman.
I don't know about third. Actually, no, he would be the third strongest. Yeah, because Yuria doesn't really count Shu, Rai, and Souther. Yeah, I could agree with that. That makes sense.
Juza stomp sign. Yeah, I have no question with that. Juza was throwing hand. Yeah, okay, that's true. He did throw hand.
So with Ein doesn't really show many feats, so just due to that, Juza is just above that. Like, Ein does have some feats, but they're not like, he's not facing off against someone who is really that top tier, right? Like, facing some random Celestial Army people is just not really, that's not going to put you on the level of Juza, so I agree that Juza does win.
And with Raul. Juza is pretty strong for what he's shown. Pretty sure he cut off, or was about to break Raul's arm in the anime. Jakko isn't a fighter. Jagi no Sanoko no In. And Nato. Yeah, Jagi wins. Jakko doesn't really do anything. He literally gets scared of Bat. So yeah, I agree. Jockey wins.
I agree with that. I think, and if I remember right in this post, they kind of like overestimate what Jaco can really do. Jaco is not really that big of a fighter. He's shown no feats at all. He seems to be scared of literally everyone that has like, some form of martial art ties or is related to someone who has a martial art ties in the case of Bat 9. So I don't really see how Jaco can at all fight someone like Joggy who can take a nuclear bomb in the Joggy novel. So really weird how Jaco is kind of like put up against Joggy here, but again, that's just me.
Toki versus Hyo depends on which version of each. I think at peak, it's apparent that Toki stomps just about anyone. No, Toki does not stomp anyone. I don't know what it is with people that like.
Alright, so before I go on in my argument in this video, I will say at the time that I made this video, I didn't really understand this Toki hype. Now, this was pretty much when I met Soul. So around the time when I met Soul is when I actually made the Toki argument. The Toki argument is the argument you see in my top 10 video. And so basically this is pre the argument I had conceived for Toki. So around this time I'm seeing people rank Toki really high. And to be honest, most of these arguments are really poor and terrible. I've really only seen mine argument as the best argument for Toki. But to say that like, Toki is top 5, kind of like really got me upset at the time. So kind of keep that in mind. Now to answer this specifically, Toki versus Hyo. Hyo absolutely bodies Toki. It's not even a question. If you want to put it together, you could really just use the scaling I used in my top 10. Put Kaio above Toki and then Hyo above Kaio. So you can use that. But yeah, I don't think Toki is winning this at all.
They try really hard to emphasize Toki just takes out his meaty schlong and just slaps everything.
Also, if you're curious why I use like schlong as a word, I'm trying to use this as like, at the time I was like, oh, if I censor myself, I think it like gets me more like bonus points or something like that. But which is really weird because I think later on I contradict myself like logic with that and I say I'm cursing or whatever. So I don't really get why I wasn't doing that, but that's just me at the time. So yeah,
everyone, because that was never implied. It was implied that he could beat Raul, but Raul isn't like, he didn't even have Muso Tensei. He wasn't even at his prime yet. So I disagree with that. If Sick Toki could do it, I say, or Sick Toki could beat Raul, I say Prime Toki could probably be a Raul that didn't have Muso Tensei. But Toki's not so well diverse. Just because he was.
By the way, this is unconfirmed, however, there might be an instance where Toki has unlocked Muso Tensei. Again, unconfirmed, however, Soul showed me this cool scan, and it might be Toki using Muso Tensei, so even then you could kind of say, what if, Toki has Muso Tensei, which would be kind of crazy, but this is when, I think the scan was when he was older, so like past his prime, when he was sick. So if we wanted to use a composite Toki, then yeah, like, he would probably be above like Hyo and stuff, and possibly even above, probably not above Kinshiro because he has his seals lifted unlike Toki at the time. But, you could say he's definitely above Raul if it's a composite Toki. But yeah, I think if we, like I said in this video, I don't really see the Toki hype at this point. Again, scaling Toki above Raul when he's sick is a little, I think they're around equals at best. I don't think Toki is above Raul. I'll say that.
Gonna maybe beat a early to mid-series Raul doesn't mean he's gonna beat Toki, or it doesn't mean he's gonna beat all of the verse. Sick Toki loses to Hyo. Yeah, Hyo kind of beats almost everyone. I would say probably besides Prime, Kenshiro, and Kaio. Because Hyo...
I actually disagree with what I say here. Again, I don't think Kaio's like the top 2 anymore. I think he's been kicked off, and at the time, again, I went back and watched the anime just because I like watching old anime. So I got back into it around, this was like a year or two before this video actually released when I got back. So I was watching the anime at the time. And so in the anime, and I talk about this in my top 10 video, they really hype up Kaio, and he's like, oh, he can, rule the world, and, he's like, top, 2, maybe top 3 if you think Rao's up there, blah, blah, blah. And, it implies, Kaio is like the second bad man, and he can, he pushed Kenshiro, and only when he's injured is when Kenshiro's beating him, right? Like, that's what it implies in the anime. However, in the manga, it's more like, it says a lot that Kaio is deliberately scared of Hyo when he has his full powers unlocked, and Kenshiro when he has his full powers unlocked, it's a little weird at the same time, because he seems excited to face Kenshiro with seals. However, Kenshiro with seals absolutely demolishes him, or Kenshiro without his seals, excuse me. And so he absolutely destroys him, and Hyo just has amazing scaling after that. He gets stronger after his fight with Kenshiro, and he's injured after his fight with Kenshiro. Of course, he just got stabbed in the chest, and he just got done fighting with Kenshiro, so he is heavily injured. So imagine him when he's not injured and he's not tired, right? He's absolutely crazy. He has like he has like the rageful god of war. It's just absolutely crazy what Hyo is at that point, and I don't think Kaio matches him, especially in the anime or in the manga. In the anime, you'd say Kaio is stronger. However, that's just not canon. So yeah,
he scales more to a Muso Tensei Kenshiro from later on. So I don't know why that's even a question. Rao beats KO, though he doesn't. KO slaps. Rao lost to a earlier Muso Tensei Kenshiro, while KO be a way higher trained and stronger Kenshiro. Not even close. Remember the whole Shura's society was based.
So I'm gonna pause this right here. So I think so they're using the Rao prophecy. The Rao prophecy, just like I'm gonna make a video about Rao and his scaling and how strong he is, blah blah blah. And in the video, I am going to point out how the Rao prophecy is not even real, right? Like, it literally says, Kaio tells Linnerin, depending on your translation you read, he literally tells her that, I made up the prophecy, right? Like, the prophecy's not real. Kaio literally makes it up for Raoul. Raoul has ambitions to go, but that's the reason why Kaio made it up, is because he knew Raoul has ambitions, so he then spurred it around Ashura, so that way people had hope to save him from Kaio. So it's not even real. People can think whatever they want. I don't remember what I say here as an argument, so I'll be curious to see what I say.
Based off the fear that Keno would invade. Okay, that's not true. Okay, it's true that it was based off the fear that Keno would invade. That is true. But the thing is that the whole thing of everyone was scared of Raoul. That isn't. The reasoning of being scared was stupid. So the thing was one, they didn't even know Raoul later on got Muso Tensei, and they didn't know Kenshiro was stronger than that. And if they're...
Okay, so this is interesting. So, I don't think this proves anything, like what I'm saying here. I don't think this... If anything, this defeats my argument that I'm saying in this video. So, what I'm saying here is that, they didn't know Kaio had Muso Tensei. If they didn't even know that, that only helps Rao scaling, because it just means base form Rao would be above their interpretation of Kaio, because really they do know about Genmei-iri, so it would be a Motoki staged demon form. So they do know about demon form Kaio. So then, if they knew Muso Tensei on top of that, then or if they didn't know Muso Tensei on top of that, that only just puts that Rao above him. So I don't really get that. I know the prophecy doesn't exist. However, I haven't explained to you yet why the prophecy doesn't exist, so this only helps the argument that, Rao is just stronger than Kaio. That's what it's saying. I said something about Kenshiro beating. I think they did know that. Yeah, actually they did, because Sachi... Han knows that Kenshiro beat Rao, and he's like, it's useless even if you did beat Rao. Even though he does kind of contradict himself in the same page, that's whatever. and Juke knows about it, and he has to take into action what he has to do, because he's not positive Kenshiro can beat Hyo and probably later Kaio, but I don't really get my point here. I think it's really weird, but
they're fighting a stronger Kenshiro than the Rao that they were quote unquote scared of. That kind of contradicts himself. So
I don't think that contradicts anything. Again, I don't know. Weird argument I made there, but whatever.
This whole point doesn't make sense. It's irrelevant. Raul beats Falco. No, he doesn't. Falco beat a stronger Kenshiro.
Here I talk about how Falco is above Raul. I think they're more equals now, just because my interpretation of Falco since then, it hasn't really declined. It's just more so I've realized people they've gotten stronger, and the gap isn't really quite what I thought. So it's more like they're equals, because Raul is, in Muso Tensei is not beating Kenshiro when he's in Muso Tensei. And then, that Kenshiro just gets stronger, and you can argue he's rusty. I debunked that point in my top 10 video. So then Falco is then facing off this Kenshiro, and people use, Kenshiro leg reduced himself for the sake of fairness. However, before that even, Falco was kind of giving him the smoke, and he was kind of laying it down harder than Kenshiro was. So you could say even then, Falco was above that Kenshiro, if you want to use that. It's more so after he's leg reduced, he oddly enough gets stronger. But this could also just be because they're both decreasing at a really not a rapid rate, but they're decreasing a lot during that fight. They're both getting extremely battle damage to the point where, they're bleeding on the ground. So it's kind of more like Falco is facing a stronger Kenshiro than when he faced Raul, in terms of base, that is. And then, even though Kenshiro isn't using Muso Tensei, Raul doesn't even really scale above Kenshiro than Muso Tensei. In fact, he's scaling lower. And there's even a thing in Legends Revive, I know, a mobile game, but it says that Raul was using his full power. And there is some statements by Hara and Bronson that, these games are canon, or the spin-offs games that are canon. So if you use that, Raul is just not looking at his best when he's facing, Kenshiro. In terms of the lore, he's not at all, right? He just does not really stand up to Kenshiro how it is. So I think it is more they're equals. Maybe you can argue Falco is higher. Maybe you can argue Raul is higher. I don't really care. I think they're more equals, just based off of the scaling. So
I think people highball Falco. No one highballs Falco. I feel like Falco's underrated, if anything. Falco versus Souther, close to even. No, Falco slaps. If Falco is above a move.
I'll say this. Falco, if you want a direct way to scale Falco to Souther, Falco during the pre-time skip, he's stated, actually this is even pre-Raul fight, as a matter of fact. So Falco, in his mind, he knows when he's about to fight Raul, he thinks that he could win. However, he would just be severely battle damaged to the point where he could not help his village. And he thinks worst case is that him and Raul just kill each other off. So there's that. You then have Souther, who is arguably scalable to, or not arguably scalable, arguably he is relative to a base Raul, right? Kenshiro at this point is just, I don't want to say he's definitely not unknown. He's weaker than Toki and Raul. It's implied that. So Souther's losing to a Kenshiro, and then he gets surpassed by Toki and Raul at the time. So it's more Falco at worst interpretation is equal to the same base Raul that Souther is, maybe scaling to, right? So
above a first half Kenshiro with Muso Tensei, while Souther's losing to an mid-series Kenshiro in the first.
Yeah, you could also use a scaling as well. I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying, worst interpretation, Falco still wins.
Half. So, Falco wins. Close to even, both guys are Raul. Didn't want to take head on. Wait, close to even. Both were guys. Okay, yeah, that's kind of true. Now, he just contradicted himself. When he says Raul beats Falco.
I'm gonna skip past this because it's just fluff.
But good work. But we'd all agree probably we'll lose to Raul. Dude, this dude's a big Raul. Like, prime, like, hair. Don't really care. Chariot Stars rep the Light Generals.
Actually, I realized I skipped over this by accident. Shirin beats Akatsuchi, so... I don't really... They're both kind of obscure characters, however... I will say this. I kind of explained this earlier how a demon is above a Nanto user. You then have... There's kind of like two ways to look at Akatsuchi. So you have him with his men, who can kind of give Kyle the smoke, and you then have him by himself. So Akatsuchi can... Or, Akasachi, I don't know what I'm saying, Akatsuchi. Akasachi, he could go into the land of Ashura with his men, and then he's the only one that survives. Right? Which is crazy because based off his statements, he was fighting, many demons and stuff. Based off of that alone, he scales above Shirin. Then you have him with his men where he can give Kyle the smoke. It's kind of like Shirin gets kind of slapped. Shirin and Hui, they're both absolutely fodder out of the Chariot Stars. They pretty much get one-shotted. Shirin does better than Hui, however, it's not big enough to say Shirin scales to Raul. So they both get slapped by Raul, and then, you then have Kenshiro beating Raul when Raul's even stronger than when he faces Shirin. And then you have Kaio beating a stronger Ken than when he faced a stronger Raul. So it's like, that on itself, there's kind of a gap. And I'm not saying Akasashi scales to, a full power-based Kaio, right? I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying he can kind of hold off Kaio for a pretty good amount for Sachi to run away with super injured Kenshiro. So that on itself, just those 2 feats, they're just far above what Shirin has done. And then here I talk about Chariot Stars versus Light. Oh, actually, wait a minute. It's what, Ryaku versus Akasachi. Akasachi again, even though Ryaku is stronger than Hui and Shirin, I don't think it's enough to make the difference. I explained all this stuff earlier. And then let me see what I say for Chariot Stars versus Light Generals.
Roll jokes aside from Falco, and he's overrated. Okay, Falco's not overrated. That's kind of close. Can Falco carry? That's basically the question, because I agree. Because Falco's the only strongest one.
I think that's incorrect what I say there. Solely scales to, post time skip, Kenshiro, and he can make him bleed with his attacks. So he's, scaling to this Kenshiro. I don't remember if this Kenshiro uses Tenryu Kokuoho. He might. I'd have to go back and rate. If he does, that makes the scaling even higher. But in base, it's kind of like, even then. Actually, I don't think he would have used Tenryu. That wouldn't make sense. He would have had it in a base. So they're scaling to this Kenshiro. This Kenshiro, he's not at his peak, however. You can use what I said for Falco earlier. It would just be a weaker than that Kenshiro when he faces Falco, because he's not using Tenryu Kokuoho. And that Kenshiro is, scales to base Raul. Base Raul can, pretty much beat every single Nanto, or the 5 Chariot Stars member. So he one-shots Hui, not even close. Shirin fails to commit suicide with Raul, so that fails as well. You then have his fight against Juza. That's more competitive, however, Raul's not even pushed to Tenryu Kokuoho himself, so that's like a 30% Raul. And then you have Fudo. Fudo pushes Rao a lot more than the other ones mentioned. And so you can say he has a good chance, but he's not. I don't even remember if Rao even uses Tenryu Komoho enough. I think he does, though, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I've read that arc. And Ryaku just kind of he's getting beat around by base Rao, so it's just kind of like Sulya himself is just scaling above him. Then you have Falco, who's above Sulya, so there you go.
Yeah, so if you think Juzo and Fudo versus Falco, I'd say probably Falco carries. If he could take on a Muso Tensei, or not Muso Tensei, if he could take on a stronger than a later first half Muso Tensei Kenshiro, then Falco wins. Alright, let's see. So yeah, this dude didn't really have much points. I didn't really like it. Big Raoh Prime sucker. I wouldn't write off Jakku. Why? He didn't do much, but remember, his total maniac was sword? No, like I said earlier, he was scared of that. Nah, weak. He definitely still get bodied by any real fighter in Hakuto no Ken. Yeah, he was scared of that. So I don't know about that, but I think he could give Joggy. No, Joggy. If you think, I'd say Joggy beats.
Again, Joggy takes a nuclear bomb. We've never seen this from Jakku, and he's scared of literally everyone with no feet. So I'll go over that again.
That, because Joggy at least can fight a really early Kenshiro, but Bat can't, because Bat hasn't shown any feats on that level. Not saying he'd win, no. No. Also, I'd say Falco versus Souther. Falco is, definitely over Souther. Emo, it's not so much that Falco is incredibly strong. Thank you, he is very strong. But rather the nature of Gento, because of heavy.
I actually found that interesting, this point that this dude's arguing. I do think that Gento no Ken is kind of a hard counter to what Souther is. Like, his secret is more based around pressure points and physical-based attacks, like your fist. However, if you use something like Ki, I do think that is a direct hard counter to what Souther can even participate or can even fight against. So I like this point. It's definitely better in terms of reasoning. However, go more with scaling. Don't go more with like, oh, his fighting style, gives him an edge, right? Like, you can imagine if Falco scaled to, he lost to Shin, right? Like, his fighting style wouldn't have him beat Souther because his scaling is so much weaker, right? So kind of more based around scaling and then use something more supplementary like his fighting style, but I do like this point in terms of fighting style.
Edge over a lot of fighters. Okay. He's got a healthy mix of range and power that can put him over a lot of others. That's not his only thing, but sure. Remember, he had Ken facing a mutual kill before the guy interrupted. Also, if you're on Raoh versus KO, I think it's difficult to pin down KO because of how big the whole demonic Oro thing was. That's not his only go though. See, the thing is you're assuming, if you think it's iffy, and the only thing that decides is the demonic Oro, is that you're just assuming that Kenshiro stayed the same strength the whole time, which isn't true. If this is the only thing that you are judging this fight off of, then it's pretty apparent that you're only...
I don't even know what I'm arguing here. Like, why is this just like a random assumption? Like, what am I arguing here? It's such a weird point. He's not like... Let me go back. What do I say?
Only thing that you are judging this fight off of?
No, it's not the only thing that this person's judging off of. Like, I mean, like, it could be, sure, but just like based off the comment. But like, I don't know, assuming something like this, it's such a weird argument that I'm making. A better argument would be, why are you iffy when Kaio just has better scaling than Rao, right? That's a better way to look at it, not this weird pseudo-intellectual, like, weird argument. I don't know what I'm saying here. It's so dumb what I'm saying right there.
Same strength. So KO slaps you, way stronger Kenshiro than Rao did. Also, is this Prime Raul, or is this like...
I mean, it doesn't matter if it's Prime Raul or not. Like, Kaio slaps against both.
like, mid to late? I don't know. I'd say KO slaps out of the way, though. I think Raul might just overpower his brother. And if he came up short, he might have gotten a rematch like Ken did. Okay, I guess, sure. I think Raul versus Ken.
I don't really think that's even relevant, right? Like, the argument of, okay, well, Raul, could have not gotten, like, okay. Pretty much there's, like, no argument for Raul above above Kaio. I'll just word it like this, right? No argument at all. The prophecy's not even real. And then, you look at Raul's scaling. His scaling is very spotty. It's spotty in comparison to what you look at in terms of later series, like endgame characters. So, you look at, like, what the endgame fighters is like Kaio. Kaio can then, beat a stronger Kenshiro than when he faced against Raul. So, that is just saying something. I don't really get this point that Raul was just, he might overpower his brother, but he wouldn't do anything. He would take a fat L. I don't know. He later on says there's a flat draw. I absolutely disagree with that, but
KO's a flat out no. KO slaps. Explain why. I don't think either of them could get a lethal blow at any point. No. KO slaps. Like I said, he fought a stronger Kenshiro, so no. Also, okay, so this dude recommented, it looks like. Also, though, it doesn't really apply to Falco. I'm not sure Raul could beat Souther if he had a secret attack. If it's Muso Tensei, Raul wins. I still think Souther wins or loses. I don't know, it's debatable. Because Souther just has, like, that his secret, that his strongest technique. Those are really the only threatening things about him when it comes to characters like Raul and Kenshiro, but besides that, it's like, I'm not saying only ever could beat Keno, but with the vital points, I don't think Raul could win.
Nah, I absolutely disagree with this. Right. It's just, the scaling is just not in Salvage's favor, and Falco is just, I don't know, he's just stated to, or he's not stated, he's just scaling just to a stronger Kenshiro, and by extension Raul, so I don't really.
That's debatable. Muso Tensei slaps though, or Muso Tensei Raul at least. Ryan Shin would stop Sachi.
No, this is absolutely false. Why? I've already explained this. Just like the scale, just use what I said earlier. It's just not at all the case. Sachi beats all of them. Yeah, like I remember here. I use a basketball reference, which, like, I love basketball outside of the debating scene, which I would love to make basketball videos, but it doesn't really fit with like what I do on this channel. So I remember I used a basketball example. I don't really think, like, it's such a weird example to give for what this dude says. It's just to be like, oh, well, here's a basketball example that's like a counter to your argument. A better example would have been like use an anime example. I should have used something more like I could have used Sachi himself. Sachi got training when he was like, I don't know, I want to say almost an adult, right? Like he was he looks pretty old when he meets Juke for the first time. And so compare this to Ryan Shin, who have been under the counseling of Nanto and the guiding of Nato. So I don't really see how what the point of bringing Dennis Rodman up was. But at least there was an example to give. However, I should have done a better example. I should have just used, literally, a key example would have been Sachi himself.
Oh, is it together? Oh, no, it's two separate battles. Okay. Shin loses. Sachi's kind of fearless. And then Ride, he's kind of fearless too. He loses to Raul, and then he beats up the Fang clan members. Like, it's kind of hard to tell. Well, actually, Ride does beat Yuta, but we don't know anything about Yuta, so I don't know. The Nacho guys that would train their whole life to become successors to the art, while Sachi is only. That doesn't mean anything. It's kind of like, if you want like a in real life example, it's like saying, Dennis Rodman is a good basketball player because he started playing when he was almost an adult at least, so.
Also, for in case anyone that watches basketball is here, that is incorrect what I say. He was actually past an adult because he didn't start the NBA until he was 25. So he was actually more 21, 22-ish. So he was past the adult. I don't know what I'm saying here.
So that point doesn't make sense. So no. Okay, so round 1. The data books say Rai ends the fight if he goes straight for the kill, but Sachi if the fight is prolonged.
I want to say this. What data book is this in reference to? I would love to see the data book where this is claimed. So I have the characterization guide, the episode guide, All About the Man guide, and I have another one. Soul's translated some of them as well. The episode guide we can easily eliminate because why is the episode guide going to say, Sachi is going to lose to Rai, right? It's not going to say that. It makes no sense for it to say that. You then have the characterization guide. Characterization guide more so goes over it's more like hype up statements. It's kind of they say they do something similar with Yuta. They're like, oh well, Yuta, someone who surpasses Shin. Right? They do that kind of like a way to hype up Yuta. So this kind of again falls under what I said with the episode guide. They're not going to say, Rai or Sashi, the person who surpasses Rai, or Rai, or it makes no sense for Rai because Sachi comes up later. So that doesn't really make sense. We can eliminate that. And All About the Man, I don't ever remember seeing anything about it saying Rai can beat Sachi. And I don't remember what the other data book is called. It's called something. It might have something. It's not been translated yet. But I don't know. Unless there's some other data book that I'm not familiar with, I have no clue where this is stated, if I'm being honest.
Why? I've not seen the data books on this. I'll look it up. But like I said, they don't really show any feats, so whatever, it doesn't matter. Sachi in a hard fight. What was round 2 again? Yeah, Sachi slap. It's not hard though, at all. Choose slaps, yeah. Iron wasn't strong at all, I agree. Joggy, Japanese no fight, yeah, true. Kyo's Matakuki will cause a trouble for Toki, but Toki's airborne attack.
I already covered this earlier. Hyo slaps Toki's airborne attacks. He's not even really an airborne fight. I guess he's super. He does use some airborne attacks, but right, Hyo bodies. If we're being honest, there's no reason to say Toki is gonna win. And Hyo's Matoki doesn't really. That's not really going to be a problem. Hyo at his peak doesn't even have a Matoki, so a little weird.
Attacks will win with a very hard fight. No, Hyo's fighting a way stronger Kenshiro. That Kenshiro beats a Muso Tensei Raul, and a weaker Raul than Muso Tensei Raul beat Toki. So a little bit sick Toki, but still, yeah, no. I'm not sure how Raul could deal with Onryu Tenha, but he might rebut the fight.
I'll say this, and I outlined this in my top 10 video with Ryukin and Toki. Right, when Kenshiro first experienced his first exchange with Kaio, and he uses the Onryu Tenha on Kenshiro, Kenshiro just gets absolutely destroyed, and he has no idea how to react to it. Later on, when he faces Hyo, he has an understanding of what to do. However, his first experience with it, he gets absolutely bodied. This Kenshiro is stronger than the likes of Raul, and so Raul is he's not even gonna. It would honestly just one shot him, right? It's not even really a close one at all.
Excuse me. May very well devolve into a slugfest that Raul could win. Kao wins if he could. No, KO, he wins because he fought stronger people. So no. again, you're assuming that, like, Kenshiro that fought Raoul is the same Kenshiro that fought KO. If that's the case, then yeah, Raoul wins, but no, that's not the case. Pre-Raoul versus Falco would be interesting. As you saw, Falco did again. How well gets post? Yeah. Thank you for acknowledging this, finally. Who wasn't using killing moves but still injured him. If it's Muso Tensei Raoul, Falco loses. No.
Again, I think it's more like they tie, but that's just me.
Because it's implied that Kenshiro is stronger than his Muso Tensei self in part 1, or in Hakudo no Ken 1, and that one lost to Raoul, or beat Muso Tensei Raoul. And if a Falco's fighting a stronger Kenshiro than the one that fought Muso Tensei Raoul, then he wins. So, no, I don't really agree with that. Falco has a good chance against Salder, and Desart doesn't really on pressure point. I think you meant to say doesn't really rely on pressure points, but burning on the molecular level. Yeah, I guess, yeah, because Salder's whole gimmick is more so like I can negate your pressure point. So yeah, I agree with that.
So I suppose from here, really everything else is kind of irrelevant. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's just all fluff, right? Like, I've explained why Shirin would lose to Akasachi and Ryaku would lose to Akasachi, and then this dude's comment there, I think he would still, I don't think that really supports why, Akasachi would lose. Or actually, no, he's just explaining why he thinks Ryaku and Shirin is a good match for Akasachi in terms of, like, what they both do. So the rest is just fluff. Pretty much this video is just, I don't know. It's definitely probably be at my lowest in terms of YouTube quality, right? Like, if you look at my my video prior to this, which is the adult Sasuke versus, or not adults, it's Sasuke versus Naruto. It does have adult Sasuke versus Naruto. That part did age poorly, but everything for teens, though, that's aged beautifully. I'll say that. But I'll say that, of course, this video is just not me at my best. But the previous video to this at least had editing, and it sounded good. This just sounded really weird. There's a lot of, like, background noises as well. Like, you could hear, like, things thud and some noise and stuff, right? Obviously, as I've gotten better with that over time, but yeah, it's just really bad video overall. Takes have aged, some of them at least, or a lot of them at least, and the video quality is horrible and stuff. Hopefully this shows a difference between me back then, right? Like, look at this. This is over, a year ago, pretty much. So yeah, like, this is a while ago. It's definitely not the same as, me from now. So hopefully this shows a difference between the two people. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Alright, till next time.